Welcome back to my sewing room here at the Sewing Project Sewing School. I'm Connie Koch, and this is week 2 of our Darcy Boot sew along. Are you ready to begin? The main things I want you to focus on is really getting your boots done. At the end of this video, finish our Darcy boots. How cool is that? Okay, let's get sewing. We're going to start out with one of our boots and our accent piece. What I do with one, obviously you're going to do with both. I will be using my Fabri-Tac by Beacon, and this is going to help me baste, instead of using pins, my accent piece on. I'm just doing it right down the middle so it will stay on there as I'm sewing. And press it on a little bit. Give it like a minute or so to kind of settle in, but we did it right down the middle. It's not going to even get wet glue, even if we tried. Let's take this to the sewing machine and do some top stitching. As you see, I have my Teflon foot on, and I'm going to move my needle position over to the very last point I can move it, and I will be using the edge of my Teflon foot. So it's about approximately 1/8 of an inch, but you could get closer if you use the inside of your foot or halfway in between. I did put my stitch length to a 3.0 instead of a 2.5, which I normally put when I'm doing construction sewing. But for now, since I'm top stitching, I do want a little bit longer of a length. So when we get this edge done, we are going to flip it around, and I will be doing the other edge without even moving my needle positions. Okay, as you can see, I got both of my lines of top stitching done. And if you noticed over here, I kind of prepped one side. Get like a little marker. This one, if it irons off, it's kind of like a gel pen, and it's really hard to use pencils unless you have a specific vinyl, faux leather, or leather pencil, marking pencil. It's really hard because it's so glossy. I just use the gel. As if you see it, you can actually wipe it off with water, but you shouldn't see it. This is our 1/4 inch line that we want to follow when we put our vamp or our toe piece on. So we're prepping that. I would start, I have a seam gauge. This is what you call a seam gauge. And it's basically a 6-inch ruler with a fun little guide. And these markings, you can, the edge of this to wherever you want to put it. Here's a 2-inch, okay? But I want 1/4 inch, which is right there. I will begin putting my marking right here. I just put my marking right there. I would start there, and then actually I will do the edges, and I would go to the outer edge, begin there, mark your 1/4 inch. Don't have to connect them. Okay, like so. Now I have my 1/4 inch markings. That is going to help guide me because I am not going to use any pins. You can use pins. I have tried, I've worked with pins. They just mess me up. So this is where you're going to find your own wings. But what I can tell you is exactly where you want to begin and how you want to proceed with this process, whether you use pins or not. But the first thing you want to definitely do is no pins, and that is using your Fabri-Tac again. We will be taking our toe piece, and we will be putting a little bit of glue right here at the center, and we are going to place that right on top. That is our marking right there. You want to center that. This is going to be your sanity. The first thing we are going to sew, and we're just going to leave it like this, is you want to edge stitch now, not a 1/4 inch. We're putting it at the 1/4 inch mark like a seam allowance, but this is kind of a overlay type of a process of construction with this boot. So I'm going to edge stitch right here. And I'm not going to even do my 1/8 of an inch like I did here. I'm going to literally do, what is that? Maybe a 1/16 of an inch. This is where you need to eyeball it. So put on those glasses if you need to. All I will be doing now is stitching to this end, and that is it. And we definitely will be constantly doing either a back stitch or a locking stitch. Now from here, this is where our markings will play. We will be sewing now from here, our center, out to the edge. Then we'll be doing the same to the other side. We will be sewing this edge to the center. That's how you want to do this, and you will get an even non-twisted toe piece or vamp piece onto your boot shaft. And if you notice, I lined it up with my drawn 1/4 inch line. I will take a couple stitches. Then you have to just make sure that you pivot and you keep that all lined up. I also have this little purple thing. It's actually called a purple thing. So if you have a stiletto, awesome. Just don't get anything majorly pokey because you want to poke a hole in it, especially when you get down to the end. That will help keep that in place. I am going to actually start from here now. Okay, so I line up my lines, make sure I'm at that really close to the edge. And all along, I want to make sure when I do it from this side that this has that nice little cupped edge. Not too shabby, and that's all on camera. That's what you want it to look like. It all stems from glue basting that, getting that center piece already sewn, and then from the center out on one of the sides, you'll sew out, and this will all be good. And then you go from the outside in. Now we're moving on to finishing the sewing portion of these boots. I know you heard me right. There's one more seam we get to do. We have one seam left to do. And if you notice, I switched my presser foot to my 1/4 inch foot now. The Teflon foot we do not need. What you're going to do, if you need to, you don't have to, but I'm going to put one pin because I want to match up my toe piece or the vamp even in the back. For that purpose, I just want to be a little bit more cautious. Okay, so edge to edge with your 1/4 inch foot, we are going to sew the one and only seam in this whole entire boot. So I will now use my hot glue gun to keep those down and flat in the back. One side at a time. Use your fingers to press that over. And if you also notice, I'm doing one kind of section at a time. And now I'll get down to the bottom section of this side. I will repeat for the other side. Once this is cooled, we are going to turn that right side out. All turned right side out, we have our whole top of our boot done. The next step, what we're going to roll right into is we want in here and we snip out little triangles. This is huge when we cobble and we want to attach our soles to our upper footwear, in this case, our boot. If you notice, I didn't cut into the seam here. I'm cutting on either side for my triangle snips. There we have it. Now, the trick is, if you notice my spacing of these, you do not need them any shorter to each other. You don't need little spiky teeth. You just want to release some of the curve around. At the toe, I may have spaced them a little bit shorter, but on the straight, they were just a little bit spaced further out from each other. So what's next? Well, we're going to shove our sewing machine off to the side or go to a different crafting table, because now this is the part where we get to attach the sole to our boot, and we are almost finished. So hang tough with me. You got this. Are you all in your cobbling spot? Okay, I am. I moved everything aside and now we're just working on our soles for our boots. So you should have beside you your cobbling stand like I do, or your doll, because you definitely need a foot or you need the cobbling stand with the 2 feet on there to finish this process. I have now, we are preparing our inner soles. Fast Scrab Tacky Glue is the glue that we'll be using. Also, of course, the hot glue gun. Those two are important. You're going to glue all 3 of these together, one right on top of the other. And the last one. So we have all 3 of our inner soles put together, our cardboard. So that's going to give us a nice sturdy sole. I have my left one all done and ready together. So, I told you I was going to use my fabric to do a nice, fun covering for the inner soles. At this point, if you did the 2mm foam, you should have had another piece like this cut out, and you will definitely want to glue that on top of here. But if you're going to be using fabric like I am for just something different inside the fun boot that we have, I put that upside down and I will center that just like that. Press it down, flip it up, and I will also smooth that out. You do not need a lot because we will be gluing it more in the back and tightening it up. So just like we did with our boots, we are going to do our little snips. Now I do snips here, I do triangles there. So if you look, it looks like a feather. I just snipped around, just snip, snip, snip all the way around. From there, we are going to bring back our tacky glue and work around. Now it's not hot glue, so I can actually put this all the way around in one fell swoop. So you're just gonna tighten it up, smooth it around, all the way around. Trying not just where you can fine tune, flip it over and making sure that it's all nice and snug as it's gluing, just like that. Now we're gonna let that sit for a little bit because you want that dried completely before we get on to the next step. I have my doll cobbling stand here now. I put both of my upper boots on perspective feet, if you will. If you're just working with a doll, there is no need for that. Just work with one boot at a time. And you definitely do need to use both of her feet because this does have a definite right side and a left side. Put my double-sided sticky tape. If you notice this little run of tape right there, you want to use double-sided sticky tape on your doll's foot or on your cobbling stand. Then we are going to put our inner sole right on top of that. Now, we're working upside down, so this inside needs to be facing down. This is not the same size as either your doll's foot or this cobbling stand, and that is made for a reason. Just center that. And mind you, these are boots. So technically that square toe should be sticking out just a little bit more. So if you see up close, this is how I have mine laid out on the cobbling stand. So when you get that center, that's when you want to press down so it will have a nice seal. Definitely it will come off, so do not worry. Now this is where your hot glue will come into play, and take this slow. You will move up your boot surrounding your inner sole. I will work from the heel and the toe first. Then I will work my sides. In doing so, I'm working my heel first. Notice I put that up right up at that 1/4 inch, and I centered my seam with the back of the heel of the inner sole. I will now place hot glue just right at that seam, and we're going to push it over and we're going to hold it until it dries. I will do one more on each side for my heel part. I will be moving it now away from me again because it's easier for me to work towards me when I'm lining up. Now, this is a square toe. There's really no different from the square toe to the rounded toe. Just make sure that that is lifted up to your 1/4 inch, and I'm holding it tightly with my other hand. I will do again one little section at a time so I can get it as smooth as possible. Again, working towards me. I always do my opposite sides. Now I can finish off the rest of the side. Sometimes I will do 2 at a time, depending. Sometimes I do 1 at a time. Still depends on the shoe I'm working on. And I'll flip it over. All looks good. And here's the trick to taking it off. Make sure your hand is cupping and holding below your sole of the cobbler stand or your doll's foot. Cup it and hold it. And you're going to roll it from side to side and take it off. Now the tape is still there. We will take that off. Sometimes it's not, sometimes it's left inside the boot, but I'm kind of glad because this is a really tall boot. Now let's put this aside. It just takes practice, you guys. You got this. Second to the last thing we'll be doing is putting on our outer sole. And that's very easy and simple. Of course, hot glue again. I will be applying it on the inside of the sole. I am not going to get close to the outer edges because I will be generous on the inside. And when I'm squishing it down and pressing it firmly on while it's cooling, it may ooze out the sides, but it'll be less oozing than if I would get straight out to the edges. So just be generous. Pressing it down. I put it on a flat surface too, and I press it down. I will even get on the inside and press it down. I have not even mentioned while I'm pressing this down and making sure that it's all solid in there around my edging. I didn't cut it out at the beginning when we prepped it. I think a lot of times when I don't do that, I'm unsure of what I want to use around for my finished look. I really do like the brown to be set apart. So I am going to be using my black faux leather for my band around the bottom of my boot. We're ready for our trim around our sole, and then we're finished. I cut mine at 1/4 inch, probably 99% of the time. I like that look. I don't like it any wider. There are some instances, depending on the shoe or the boot, on the look that I want, I will go up to 3/8 of an inch, and that is the widest I will cut my trim for the soles. That's just personal preference. I know some patterns out there have a 1/2 inch. I can't do it. I did it one time and I really didn't like the look of it. And so 3/8 is my max. 1/4 inch is my go-to 99% of the time. And I always start from the back. I will put a little glue on the end and start from the back. Right here at my seam. Your main goal is to keep, you can't see that because it's black on black, but your main goal is for the bottom soles, you want to keep your trim flush with that. And then from there, now I have a good line. I do it in sections. Hot glue dries pretty fast, so you don't want to do any more. And I will just go down a little bit of a line on the trim itself, and I will go around my boot. When you come up to that non-rounded toe area, it's actually going to be easy because it just gives you little more corners to work with. Now, when you get up to your seam, almost to your seam, we want to match it almost perfect. I don't want an overlap. So I let that go. I bring it over. I'm not really stretching it some. You can at the end. And this is when I will just, right at that seam, I'll trim it out. And if I need to trim it a little bit more, I can. If I need to stretch it just a little bit, I can do as well. But that's how you will get to be able to butt up those seams and they don't spread apart on you. We're done. It wasn't that hard once you really look and take your time. And this right here, that's the only thing to sew more boots just like that. This happens to be pointed and curved. Utilize your marking tools, utilize your center, get that stitched first. Got this. And you have a boot that's not twisted. How cute is that? Wait till you see these boots. These were made specifically for a special model of mine with an amazing cool outfit. They're going to be adorable. I hope you had fun and thank you so much for joining me. And I appreciate all of you having an amazing time cobbling just like me. Until next time, keep sewing.